Hello, everyone, and welcome to another season of the Real Steel podcast. You know the deal. We talk all things Pittsburgh Steelers. No BS, just the real steel. I'm one of your hosts, Jeff, and I am joined by my co-host, Polt. Polt, it's been a while since we last talked.
Yeah,
Started the 2025 NFL season. How you doing? How you feeling? What's new?
I'm doing good, man. Nothing real new on this side. Excited to be back and talking to you. First time in a long time, especially about the Steelers. But I think before we get into the Steelers, we got to bring up the personal side of things. Got to give you a big congratulations on now being married. Congratulations to you and Patty. Yeah, look at that nice ring he has on his finger. Yeah, congrats. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yep, good weekend. Lots of fun.
Yeah,
Definitely peaked. So hopefully the Steelers can do something special for us this year to bring some more excitement back into the life. But no,
yeah.
I appreciate that shout out. It's good to be a married man and have that behind us now. So
Yeah,
um,
maybe you'll have better takes now that you're a married man. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, we'll see. I don't know if the takes will be as hot. Who knows? But one thing I do know, I saw a post today that said we are 100 days from the start of the NFL season, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
100 days out, and the Steelers did a lot of stuff leading up to the to this 100-day mark, or maybe you could even say they didn't do a lot of stuff.
right.
But that leaves us with plenty of things to talk about. Honestly, I think what we probably would cover today could probably be two or three separate episodes.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we'll give kind of a concise version of everything we want to talk about. I think we should talk about the schedule. I think we should talk about some acquisitions, some departures from the team, and maybe tie things up with a nice bow and cover the draft really quickly and get a feel for some of who these new guys on the team are. That sounds good
Yeah,
with you.
that sounds great. The last time we talked was January 15th after that pretty miserable wild card loss. So
Woo!
we were pretty down in the dumps. Hopefully we're a little bit more optimistic since it is the off season. This is the time when everybody's a Super Bowl champion or a Super Bowl contender. So
Very true. And I mean that I will say that hiatus has certainly
yeah,
refreshed just a little bit, right? I don't think we have the
no,
Steelers negative fatigue that we have gotten, and I think there were definitely some reasons for why we could start to feel that way.
yeah,
Particularly if you look at maybe our quarterback situation, which we will definitely talk about. But
yeah,
nonetheless, I think it's good to be back and talking Steelers a little bit, and I'm excited to do it with you. So
yeah. Let's get into it.
cool. I think we should really start actually before we do schedule. We got to talk about some of the transactions that the team has made.
Yeah,
And I think, I would be remiss to not talk about the quarterback position first because we're in a pretty weird situation, right? I think we had two guys you could argue who both wanted to be Pittsburgh Steelers for 2025,
yeah,
and neither of them are here. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson both left the organization, and maybe grass is greener for them on the other sides, but we don't know if the grass is going to be greener for the Steelers without them. So we are currently looking at a quarterback room of Mason Rudolph, who is a former Pittsburgh Steeler, went to the Titans, and now he's back. Very
yeah,
polarizing figure, I would say, to many as Steelers fans, but I do think he certainly redeemed himself towards the end of his career as a Steeler, winning, what was it, 3 games in a row to put us into the playoffs.
yeah,
So Mason Rudolph, I would say right now is probably our quarterback one.
yeah.
We also have Skylar Thompson, who is a kind of a career backup for the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if he played anywhere else. Maybe he
Nope,
did.
just the
Okay.
Dolphins.
And we have a new draft pick that we'll talk about. And Kyle Allen is not with us anymore. Is that correct?
Correct. An entirely new room for the second straight year.
For the second straight year, right? Because that happened last year when we had Russ, Justin Fields,
And
and
Kyle
Kyle
Allen.
Allen. So
Right.
we now have three new guys. Mason Rudolph is the vet in the room, which is
Yeah.
pretty crazy to think. Again, Skylar Thompson, I think he brings a couple years of experience, and Will Howard is the rookie from Ohio State, which we'll talk about as we
Yeah.
kind of get towards the draft. Now, I think the elephant in the room here is the entire Aaron Rodgers situation and everything that has or has not happened. So, with that, you're a pretty opinionated dude. I'm gonna turn it to you right away to kind of give this this Aaron Rodgers kind of situation scenario some life because I feel pretty strongly one way about it, which I will vocalize. But
Oh
I've
yeah.
talked with
Yeah, and I mean, I think it is funny just to start hitting on Mason Rudolph. You mentioned that he's a polarizing figure within the Steelers community. I think he's a really polarizing figure within our real Steel community, right? I mean, you and I have been pretty opposite sides of the spectrum on him leading up to it. I think now we're a little bit similar in viewpoints on him, but it is kind of funny that he's back, and now we get to talk about your favorite backup quarterback in the entire league. So that's fun. But he is the
backup
starter
QB
at the
that could be a
moment.
QB1 right now. Yeah,
Right.
so
And he did come out this week, so we're filming this on Wednesday. He came, I think yesterday, Tuesday, they started OTAs, and he was there, and he said that it's good to be back with the Steelers because he wants to be wanted, and the Steelers wanted him, and he's happy to have that opportunity to be back. So he's in good spirits, but the elephant in the room and what he's trying to avoid that conversation is the Aaron Rodgers situation. In my opinion, and it's different than yours. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I feel pretty strongly about that. I feel that when he came and visited and spent an entire day with us on the South Side, that they came up with some verbal kind of agreement like, hey, this is what we would sign you to, this is what you would be signing for. You just have to put pen to paper and join. And I do think he is seriously considering retirement. But at this point, it really seems like he's playing, and he's left a couple hints. I believe this past weekend, a Bears fan was interviewing him in Chicago, and he said, "Well, I'm going to be playing there at some point this year." And the Steelers, we'll talk about the schedule, but we do play in Chicago. So he's left a couple hints here and there, and I just don't believe this. First of all, we know the Steelers, this is a thing they do. They always have four quarterbacks, always. And we only have three. So where are they going to get the fourth? You would think a guy like Mason, or not Mason Rudolph, a guy like Aaron Rodgers would make some sense. So I personally think that they're gonna sign him. The rumor now is if they don't sign him, they're gonna go to Kirk Cousins and trade for Kirk Cousins. And I think you and I, we can just knock that out right away. For the money he's worth and the money you'd have to pay, and just the player himself, neither of us are interested in Kirk Cousins.
you're not wrong. But
Okay.
I also think that one of us is
Yeah.
also not interested in Aaron
Go ahead.
Rodgers.
Give your opinion on that, and I can maybe give the opposite.
Yeah, I would say probably two things here, and probably both of them are going to be points that strongly disagree with what you feel. Number one, I actually don't even feel like he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I just feel like time's ticking. I really kind of think he's probably just going to hang it up or call it quits. I think if he
Yeah.
was going to sign, why wouldn't he have already? Kind of think he's just toying around, playing some games, and I don't know. I don't really feel like it's likely. Honestly, I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have already. Now, you can certainly argue what you did in terms of saying, hey, the Steelers always come in with four quarterbacks. It's Mike Tomlin. He's not going to start, a season and try to be fully competitive with Mason Rudolph. There's got to
Yeah.
be some other piece that's here. But for me, it's just been one after the next, right? Rumor after rumor. You're holding on to Aaron Rodgers, and I don't know. I don't get the warm and fuzzy feeling from him that he's going to be on the team, and I don't really want it. And here's the reason why I don't want it is I look at who Aaron Rodgers is, and sure, you can make arguments that yeah, the second half of last year he played pretty well after he kind of healed, came back and got into the rhythm of things after his injury or whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the dude's 40 plus years old. He's not Tom Brady. I don't know if he has everything that he had previously in his career, but at the end of the day, I go off the saying where Mike Tomlin always says, we want volunteers, not hostages. And to me, Aaron Rodgers is not at all being a volunteer here. And I feel like he's going to be someone who's extremely toxic in the locker room and really divisive. And I don't want that, right? We've had locker room problems and
Too
issues
many.
and characters, and we'll talk about George Pickens in a second, but you look at a lot of the people that have left our team and caused drama. And, I think that's kind of a constant issue with the Steelers. And boy, it would be so great to have kind of refreshing view in the locker room if there's not really a polarizing type figure, right?
Yeah.
So I just don't feel like he's a good fit for the team, honestly. Skill wise, talent wise, on paper, yeah, we need a quarterback. Would I argue? I like Mason Rudolph. Would I argue that Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Mason Rudolph? Sure. I think that most people who wouldn't say that, I'd say are probably crazy.
Yeah.
But even with that, I think I would prefer Mason Rudolph as our quarterback this year, as opposed to Aaron Rodgers. And so what if you win 5 games, you win 6 games? It hasn't happened in a while where the Steelers have been able to kind of don't want to say tank, but have been able to kind of front load towards a draft. We got a lot of draft picks next year, and it's in Pittsburgh. And it's crazy to say this as a Steelers fan because I never really have fully been here, but I would be okay with a lesser win season, and
Yeah.
actually kind of being in a position where we could do something about the future. So that's my hot take. And at the end of the day, I just don't feel like Aaron Rodgers is the guy for us.
Yeah, and I think that last piece you said is where we do agree. I do think that this might be time for a rebuild, right? And to maybe not tank, but not have a good year so that we have a high top 10 draft pick and could pick a quarterback high. I mean, if you want to look towards the future, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be helping us in the future. He could help us this year, but he's not going to help us beyond this year. So if we want to get back to being the Super Bowl contender that we are, that we want to be every single year, we need a young quarterback. The only way to do that in the league nowadays is to draft in the top 10. Unfortunately, that's just what it is. And for that, I agree with you. I would love to run it with Mason Rudolph and Will Howard, see what we have in Will Howard, see what we have in Mason Rudolph, and if you get 5 wins, you have a top 10 pick, and you could get one of these stud quarterbacks that supposedly are coming out next year. But this is Mike Tomlin. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think they know how to do that or are willing to do that. And that's where I do think that they're going to come in with somebody different or somebody, a quarterback they view as a difference maker like Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's pretty telling. Mason Rudolph played really well at the end of 2 years ago, those last 3 games that you said. He didn't play that badly in the playoff either. I mean, he didn't have his best game, but he didn't play that badly. And they said, see ya, we don't really care. Go ahead and walk away. And they bring him back, that's great, but I feel like they don't bring him back to be the full-time starter. And then you
Yeah.
go and get Will Howard in the 6th round. I mean, maybe you felt it was a value pick, but you're obviously not expecting him to be a full-time starter out of the 6th round, right? I mean, those usually happen by chance or by really good camp standouts. So for that reason, I think that's why I think they're going to go with a proven starting quarterback. And you mentioned his last 5 games were really good. He averaged probably like 250, 270, a couple touchdowns every game, played really well down the stretch. And I do think if we're talking about this year being the best team possible, I think out of our 4 quarterback or out of the 3 quarterbacks and who's available,
Yeah,
I
you
do
could say
think Aaron
Homer
Rodgers.
yet.
Well, yeah. Out of the 3 quarterbacks we have on the roster and who's available to go get, I do think Aaron Rodgers gives us the best chance to win. I do.
Yeah.
And it's I'm not saying like I personally would take Rodgers just because I think it would be interesting. I mean, him and Tomlin love each other. We've seen those comments. We've seen the little things they do on the field together. Like I partly believe that Tomlin wants him and he wants to play for Tomlin. And I think he's waiting because he's 42 years old and doesn't want to be doing voluntary workouts. Now, on a new team, new offense, he should be there. He should be getting reps with the
Yeah,
team.
like I don't want that.
But I
So
do, oh, and I do think that there is possible they gave him the playbook. If there's this unwritten agreement, I wouldn't be shocked if he's already studying. But he should still be there in the locker room getting reps with the guys. And this goes to your divisive comment. There's already been stuff said in that locker room. Like Cam Hayward came out right away and said, "Hey, if you don't want to play for us, we don't want you." And he had to backtrack from that and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we don't need a polarizing figure. We've tried to get rid of those guys, whether it's George Pickens, whether it's Deontay Johnson, whether it's some of these other guys. We've tried to get rid of them and to bring them back, to bring a guy like that back would be bad. But I hope New York humbled him and he'd be ready to come in and actually be a leader.
I just feel like it's a little sketchy, a little shady from
Yeah,
if that's the case and there's an unsigned agreement in place and he has our playbook and it's like why aren't you why aren't you at OTAs, why aren't you doing workouts, why aren't it's just it's weird, it just doesn't give me good vibes, you know.
I look at it as June 10th, Tuesday, June 10th is the start of mandatory minicamp. If he's not signed by the week before or by then, and he's not at mandatory minicamp, he's not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I really think that is the deadline. If he's not there at mandatory minicamp, he's not a Steeler.
All right, I think we place a little friendly wager on it then.
Yeah, we definitely could.
All right, that we can do. So until then, time will tell, right? We don't really know what else is going on until we see whether or not that he's going to come in and be our quarterback. I will say one other thing you did mention earlier with the Kirk Cousins rumor, and I think you had kind of said we could probably be in agreement to shut that down pretty quickly. Would you agree that if Aaron Rodgers is not a Pittsburgh Steeler, no one else will be? Or do you still think that there's possibility they make another move or a different move?
I think they get a fourth quarterback.
Hmm.
I just don't think it's Rod or it's not Cousins, I guess. I think if it's not Rodgers, they're gonna go with one of the guys in the room now.
So, but you think we'll sign someone in
Yeah.
addition?
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Well,
Maybe not. Maybe they'll go three. I don't
I
know.
kind of feel like they're just not going to do anything at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I
Honestly,
guess who's left? Maybe they trade for Jameis Winston. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, every quarterback in the NFL that you can name, the Steelers were in the conversation at
And
some
they
point,
and they
right?
passed on
On
all of them.
rumor.
So obviously
So,
they don't want them.
yeah. So, or that person doesn't want to be a Steeler or don't want to be traded or
Yeah.
whoever, right?
Yeah.
I heard Kyler Murray. I heard.
Oh yeah. We've had every. It's this is the Brandon Ayuk situation all over again, right?
Yeah.
It was with the quarterbacks this year.
So let's move past it a little bit. Let's just talk about our other couple big moves that the Steelers
Yeah.
made. I think a huge one to talk about here is DK Metcalf, bringing on kind of a huge name wide receiver onto the team, which at the time we still had no quarterback, and we had DK Metcalf and George Pickens on the team. So that was pretty exciting. I still think there's reason to be excited with DK on the team,
Yeah.
even though George Pickens is gone, which we'll talk about here shortly. But what's your read or what's your take on DK?
So yeah, when we talk about the draft in a little bit, we got to keep in mind our 2025 second round pick was for DK Metcalf. So we did not pick in the second round, but we got DK Metcalf, and then we signed him to a 5-year, $150 million extension. Which when we first saw it, I think you and I both were like, "Holy crap, the Steelers did that." We don't do that to guys who were not in the organization from the very beginning. So um, pretty impressive chunk of money he got. I think very well deserved at 27 years old. He's been a stud, and I think he really could be a difference maker. I was really intrigued to see him and George Pickens on the field at the same time. I was thinking we could have tandem fights going on during the game, but I do think DK Metcalf's a way more mature player than George
Yeah,
Pickens,
absolutely.
and really any of the stud receivers we've had the last 3 or 4 years. And I do think he's a difference maker. He's gonna make the team better, and whoever's throwing the ball will find him open. And I'm really excited about it. I thought that was a great trade and well worth the money.
Yeah, he's a big dude. He's fast as hell. I mean, you could argue maybe not last year or previous years, but at one point you could probably say he was a top 10 receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
Fantasy stats probably would back it up. Real like his raw stats probably would back it up. So it's a really exciting move by the Steelers to make.
And,
So
and and here I didn't realize I just found this stat that only six other wideouts have contracts currently valued for at least $30 million annually. And that our biggest outside free agent signing prior to this, I know he was a trade, but outside player was Patrick Queen last year for 3 years, 41 million. So I mean that's over 100 million more money they gave out. So it shows how good of a player he is, and I'm excited to see him in a Steelers uniform.
yeah, and one other thing that says too is like you heard all these rumors that DK was like, oh, I want to go somewhere that's a contender. I want to go somewhere that's warm. Blah blah blah. And also, if you're a star wide receiver in the NFL, you want to go somewhere where you're going to have someone reliable that's going to throw you the ball, right?
Yep.
I mean, these wide receivers probably don't want to go to these teams with super young quarterbacks or rookies or unproven guys. So there could have been some background conversations that happened there too with the DK trade that said, "Hey, this is what's going to happen here," and who knows? All your little funny business that you kind of were, I don't know, crafting up back there.
Well, they worked out together. Aaron Rodgers was throwing the ball to DK Metcalf earlier in the offseason after the trade happened. So I think early April he was throwing with him. So yeah, there's little nuggets here and there that lead you to believe he'll be a Steeler. But
Lead you to believe that he will
yes,
be a Steeler. I don't know if I'd
yes.
say lead me to believe, but we will see. Okay, so DK, super exciting. One other one I wanted to mention, Darius Slay.
Yeah.
1 year deal. I think we signed Darius Slay cornerback for, and
Yep.
Steelers, can always use help with the cornerback position, and this is definitely someone who has some proven talent and has a lot of skill in the game. So excited to have Darius Slay. What's your take on him?
Yeah, I think Darius Slay is multi benefit. I think he has many benefits to this team, is what I was trying to say. I think he still has a lot of game left. He played really well last year for the Eagles on their run to win in the Super Bowl, and he is 28 years, or he is, I guess he's in his 30s. He is a veteran quarterback that's been around the league for a while, and I really think, and he's kind of said this as soon as he got signed. He said partly why he wanted to sign was to mentor Joey Porter Jr. And
Mm.
I think that's going to be a big piece of him. They don't have like the veteran guy in the locker room was Joey Porter Jr. before this. And so him coming in with all of his experience and being able to teach Joey, hey, this is how I've been a top corner, all pro type corner for however many years of his career. This is how you do it, and this is how you work out and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be a multifaceted signing that will really, really pay off.
Okay, I hope so too. I mean, he's Super Bowl winning cornerback, right?
Yeah.
So great to have someone with that level of experience to be a mentor, to be a good player. We brought in some older corners the last few years,
Yeah.
and you could say some have worked out better than others. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll see what we get out of this, but hopefully it's a positive move for the Steelers here.
I am waiting for the social media post of him and Darnell Washington making up because if you remember in the Eagles
Yeah,
game last year, they were fighting. So I think that's kind of funny that they went out and got Darius Slay.
for sure. Well, that's a good transition to tight end. I just want to go through a couple other. I don't even know if I would say notable, but
Yeah.
Donald Parham was a tight end we signed as well. Kenneth Gainwell, running back, also signed. Trying to look through this and see who else we
Brandon
brought.
Eccles, we brought him in on a 2-year contract. He's probably gonna be a slot corner for us, or at least battle with Beanie Bishop.
Yeah, so a few I would say kind of depth type pieces that the Steelers made, and
We brought Jalen
um,
Warren back.
brought Jalen Warren back, and I think it's probably time that we mention, some of the guys that have left the team, right? Obviously Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kyle Allen from the quarterback room, but we did lose Najee Harris, went to the Chargers, and we just traded away George Pickens relatively recently, right? So traded him to the Cowboys, and this is kind of another year where I feel like the offense is going to look pretty different.
Yeah.
Robert Woods, another guy we brought on, um, played for the Rams, and I'm not sure where else he was. Houston, maybe.
He's been with Houston. I forget where he was last year.
Yeah, so kind of veteran wide receiver, I would say maybe of the Allen Robinson type that kind of floated around and has landed here. So who knows what's going to happen with someone like him and where he slots on the team. But this definitely is going to be a little bit of a different team this year, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, I would say.
Yeah, and they cut Montravis Adams, who had been with the team for a couple years, so they got rid of him on the D line. Yeah, it's going to be interesting offensively if you kind of look at our depth chart right now. We're sort of, and this will kind of lead us into a George Pickens conversation. I was really excited to have DK Metcalf and Pickens because last year we spent an entire season saying we needed a wide receiver too, and saying we're going to trade for somebody, and then we went and got Mike Williams, and that didn't work out, and we were looking for that second guy outside Pickens. Well, now we're looking for the second guy outside of Metcalf because our starting receivers right now line up as DK Metcalf, Robert Woods, and Calvin Austin. And Robert Woods is a good depth piece or a good veteran receiver, but he's not necessarily a good number two receiver at this point in his career. So you look at do they make an outside move? Do they go get one of these guys that supposedly want to be traded? Does Roman Wilson step up
Yeah.
in his second year? Right, was injured all last year. We thought he was going to come back. He never did. They took Brock Taylor. I think it was an undrafted free agent that they really like out of Memphis after the draft. Ben Skoranek, Scotty Miller, we know what they are. They're kind of just
Mhm.
depth pieces. So the wide receiver room is, again, a very interesting topic. And I really think that's the biggest spot to, again, like last year, to look out for maybe as the rest of the offseason goes on. Do they make a move and try to get another proven guy?
Yeah, and also interesting too. Like I think we kind of expected that something would have happened in the draft at the wide
Yeah,
receiver position, especially knowing that you were going to ship off Pickens. If that was kind of something that was in the works, I'm surprised that nothing kind of happened there.
Well, that's a great point, and let's get into the Pickens thing because we traded him for a 2026 third round pick and a 2027 fifth round pick, and then we also sent a 2027 seventh or
Sixth
yeah,
round or
a
something.
sixth, I don't know, late round draft pick, but we basically traded him for a third round pick, and it's for next year. We did it after the draft, and I mean, this whole episode basically is analyzing Omar Khan, and you could question that. Why did he not, especially if you're going to get a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, or you have Mason Rudolph playing, why don't you use that pick to get somebody in this draft? Who it was a really deep wide receiver draft. There's some really good receivers that got taken in round three. So why didn't they do it then? I truly think that I don't know if the market was very good during the draft because people are worried about Pickens, and I think people see if the Steelers are willing to trade somebody who's a really good player, there's question marks then because we do tend to have a good inkling or a good feeling on when to get rid of these diva wide receivers. But I was disappointed we didn't use it for this year. I thought that was a really interesting decision, but the rumor is Mike Tomlin was the one that said to get rid of George Pickens. It sounded like he just had enough and didn't want to deal with it, and they just decided to make the move after the draft. But yeah, I don't really understand why this didn't happen earlier in the offseason.
Yeah, I'll tell you what stands out to me the most is just kind of the value that we got for it, or maybe the lack of value. I look at what we got for Chase Claypool in a second round pick. And the
Yeah,
way that that worked out was it was a 32nd pick of the draft when we got that because the Bears were so bad and
yeah,
the Dolphins I think had lost their pick, so that was essentially a end of round one pick for Chase Claypool, and here we are getting kind of a third round pick, and you never know the Cowboys could be a middle of the road team, could do well as I
yeah.
would think most Cowboys fans would think and hope for. So the value that you get out of this with George Pickens, is it worth shipping him away? And I think it kind of brings up the point of we've known there were character issues.
Yeah,
I feel like we kind of felt like they could have been, I don't know, maintained or could have
right.
been, I guess, handled versus cut them loose. And they took that route. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens there with the rest of his career in Dallas. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be 1 year, right? I'm pretty sure once we all agreed once they signed DK to that big contract, they weren't going to pay a second receiver big time money, and he's owed big time money next offseason for his talent. And I think it showed that they just decided they wanted to get something for him and not lose him for free. Um, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm kind of disappointed, but also like I said, we tend to have a good read on these wide receivers, so maybe it was just time to get rid of the headache and move forward.
Yeah, it's tough to see really, really good talent go away. But again, I think we can kind of flip this and be really excited about what DK brings. But
Yeah.
the downside is that we thought we had, a really strong 1 and 2, or at least 1A and 1B. And now again, you said it really well, is we were looking for Pickens too, and now we're looking for DKs too.
Yeah.
So that's all part of the challenge here, and who knows what's going to happen. To me, I feel like if you're not bringing in a big quarterback, if that's the case, and we're not going to sign Rodgers, why wouldn't you just kind of go all in and load up as much as you can around a guy like Mason Rudolph
Yeah.
and kind of give it your all here, right? You know what you have in draft picks for next year. You got some studs on defense with TJ and Cam and Highsmith and really everyone else. Why wouldn't you kind of just make a more concerted effort to get after it and put some big name players there, stack up the line a little bit to make Mason's life easier and bring in another good wide receiver if you have the payroll for it. So I think to me, in the years that we have, done the real steal, there's questions that we'll never know the answer to in terms of why the Steelers do things and why they don't do things. It's just kind of puzzling to me. I don't know. I wish we knew the pieces to the puzzle in terms of why things go on the way they do behind the scenes. But
Yeah. The Pickens situation had to be way worse than the public knows about. So at least that's how I feel.
for sure, and look what it has done in recent years, right? Chase Claypool, awful career with the Bears. Deontay Johnson,
Awful.
horrible with Carolina, and then he got traded like mid-season
He
and
was on like
was,
4 teams last year.
yeah, and then went to the Ravens and dropped balls. I mean, yeah, you know, who knows? I'm not wishing George Pickens to do poorly. I mean, I
No.
guess he's a Cowboy, maybe I am, but not wishing a bad career or anything on him
Yeah.
at all. But maybe you're right. Maybe there is something more to it that we don't see and they saw internally, and
Yeah.
maybe his career is over. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be crazy. We'll see.
We'll see. So okay, that kind of, I guess, settles things there with George Pickens.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, in terms of acquisitions or kind of changes to the roster, I think we should just cover the draft real quick.
Yeah, let's do
Um,
it.
I think we could run through these guys. Let me do this, and I'm gonna, instead of kind of doing a deep dive to everyone here, I think what is probably a worthwhile exercise is maybe we just spend a minute or so. I want to ask you on maybe who you're most excited about out of this draft class, and
Yeah.
I think that kind of be a good thing to kind of level set here on. So, first round pick, the Steelers, 21 overall. We picked Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. Big dude, proven success at Oregon. You mentioned we traded away that second round pick, and that's what we used ultimately to get DK. So our next pick was pick 83 in the third round. We took Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. Fourth round pick, 123 overall, was Jack Sawyer, linebacker from Ohio State. Round five, pick 164 overall is Yaya Black, defensive end, also out of Iowa. Big Ten draft, by the
Oh
way.
yeah.
All but one guy we drafted was from the Big Ten. Round six, pick 185 overall. We mentioned his name, quarterback Will Howard out of Ohio State. Round seven, pick 226, Carson Bruner, a linebacker out of Washington. And our only non Big Ten guy, round seven, pick 229, was Dante Kent, a corner, and I believe he's also a return specialist out of
Yeah.
Central Michigan. Um, Steelers have had a good amount of success with their draft class in recent years. I'd say that's one thing that has kind of improved, particularly in our later round picks. I would say our early round picks have not been as successful, but we've been really
Yeah.
good at finding good depth and strong players later in the draft. I'd say particularly in that third, fourth, fifth round.
Yeah.
Not looking at anything, looking at previous draft picks. That's kind of just me speaking anecdotally from, being a fan. But I feel like there's some stuff that's there that could kind of back that up. So I want to go to you first because there's a couple guys I'm excited about, but I do have one that I'm most excited about. Out of this group of guys that we have here, seven total picks, right? Who are
Yes.
you most excited about in 2025 as a Pittsburgh Steeler?
I mean, the easy answer is Derek Harmon, but I'm not going to go there. I do think them
Go there
pick.
if you want.
No, I'm not going to. I mean, I do think that like that proved them taking a defensive tackle with 21 overall proved that 300 yards rushing in a playoff game is not acceptable, especially as a Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And let's address the issue right away and get this stud out of Oregon. I really think, and he's an Ohio Stater, but I'm excited about Jack Sawyer, and I think my reasoning is that we can touch on this in a minute, but the TJ Watt situation's kind of up in the air. We don't I mean I don't think he's going anywhere. I think they'll sign him, but it's up in the air. And TJ, he played well last year but kind of faded at the end of the year because of some injuries, and they've been looking for that fourth edge rusher to kind of like give Highsmith and Watt a break and a breather and maybe keep some tread off their tires. And Herbig's been really good, but there's been nobody beside him, and I think Jack Sawyer could be a perfect guy beside him. The guy, he's a proven winner. He's done really well at the top level, playing in playoff games and big time games with Ohio State, and he has a knack for the big play, sort of like Nick Herbig has had in the NFL, right? Getting strip sacks or making game changing plays. That's kind of who Jack Sawyer is, and I don't know. I'm not an Ohio State fan, but he is a fun player to watch, and he lives and breathes the Steelers. It sounds like, and I listened to his interview with Big Ben on the football on podcast, and he's just excited to be there and excited to get to work, and it made me excited about him. So Jack Sawyer, I think, is the one I'm most excited about.
I love it. Great pick. I actually kind of thought that's where you were going to go with it, and I think
Did
you
you?
might have been worried that I was going to go there too,
I was.
um, but I'm not. I am equally as excited about Jack Sawyer, and I think the Steelers do again a tremendous job at getting some of these linebackers and edge guys and kind of pulling value in those rounds. So
Yeah.
super excited, and he's a proven player. But who I'm most excited about is it's definitely more of a flashy pick given his position, but I'm pretty hype about Caleb Johnson.
Yeah.
I think this guy was honestly one of the more highly ranked running backs in this draft class, and I think we got really good value for where we picked him. Caleb Johnson had over 1,500 rushing yards last year at Iowa and 21 touchdowns. He's about the same size as Najee is. He's 6'1", about 230 pounds.
Yep.
He's a big dude, 225. He's a really, really strong running back, and there have already been some clips floating around from him at OTAs, and I think he's going to be a really, really good kind of addition to, Jaylen Warren here. And it almost makes me question, Jaylen Warren, I think, proved himself that he could be a starting running back in the league, but, you know, for at least the back half of last year, and for many people, it's kind of been a split back type role with what Jaylen Warren is capable of doing. So I almost wonder if they're going to bring Caleb Johnson in and kind of go after more of a split back type thing rather
Yeah.
than have Jalen be a primary and Caleb be a third down back or whatever it might be. So I'm just really excited about him. I was a big Najee fan, to be honest with you, and
Yeah.
I think I made that vocal on some of our previous episodes. You know, he had an up and down type career with the Steelers and up and down type games, I would say, but really consistent career and good player and a good dude overall. And so I was sad to see him go, but I feel like Caleb Johnson can kind of come in here and hopefully fill a lot of that void that we lost with Najee. So I'm pretty excited to have this guy on the team.
Yeah. And obviously we had a need. You can't just go in with Jaylen Warren. And so I'm excited. Have you seen these pictures of Caleb Johnson? The dude is jacked. He is
Yeah,
rocked up, and he looks like a he looks like a pro. He looks like a Steelers running back when you could picture him in his black and yellow from Iowa.
he warded Iowa. Yeah,
I mean, basically he is a Steeler already, and he's another guy that seems excited to be here. He is the exact same measurables as Najee. Basically, I was trying to look up um, his 40 time. Well, I have Caleb Johnson's 40 time. He ran a 4.57 at the combine, which isn't like blazing speed, but I was trying to compare it to Najee Harris, and it looks like the only official one he has is a 4.66 in high school. There's rumors that he might have run a low 4.5 at Alabama Pro Day. Um, but I do believe on tape Caleb Johnson looks like a little bit faster than Najee Harris. So that would be good for us. I think part of one of our issues with Najee was just he was a little slow and didn't hit the holes necessarily hard. So I like that pick. I'm excited for Caleb Johnson. He's a bell cow, and even if we don't need him to be a bell cow this year, I think at some point we will. So yeah, I'm glad they addressed this. Not with a first round pick, but with
yeah,
a third round pick.
totally agree. So I'm excited to have him on the team. I saw a tweet today that said, Troy Fautanu is going to be kind of taking that right tackle job, and Broderick Jones will be moving back to left tackle. And Broderick Jones looks pretty good. At least take what you can get or take what it's worth with
Yeah.
some of these clips or these videos you see out of these guys with quick feet. But who knows? I can at least feel somewhat excited, or maybe don't know if confidence is the right word, but have a little bit of a good feeling with what we're going to get this year.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that worth mentioning. We mentioned all of our additions. I think that right there is, I mean, Troy Fatanu barely played last year. He played in like what the first game and got hurt, and
Yeah,
then Roman Wilson didn't play a snap at all. And so to get those guys back who were top three round picks last year, those are two big additions to this team basically that we didn't have last year. And maybe getting Broderick Jones back to his more natural left side of the line is also a big addition, right? So getting rid of Dan Moore, who we didn't mention, is now gone and got big time money in Tennessee, which is crazy. But maybe like moving Broderick Jones and getting Fatano back is really as big as signing like a big time free agent. So I'm
yeah,
excited, and yeah, we'll see. This offensive line's starting to shape up to be pretty solid.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so good little recap there of the draft class.
Yeah,
Um, I think we should hit the schedule pretty quick. Maybe
yeah,
we can do a little bit of don't necessarily have to do game by game type deal, but maybe we can go in chunks and see what we think the Steelers are going to do this year, um, as of May 28th, where we don't know who our quarterback is going to be. So take that with a grain of salt. But let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm looking at the first four games of the season. So two home games, two away games, but one of those home games is in Ireland. So lots of travel here for the Steelers. We start the season at the Jets. Week two is home against Seattle. Week three is at New England. And week four is in Ireland, in Dublin, against the Minnesota Vikings. Week five is our bye week. So it's the first week of October, and we now have four games under our belt. Pretty early bye season. That's probably one of the first buys in the NFL.
It is, I
Um,
think.
five. So 4 games in, where do you see the Steelers' record?
Oh man, I think if they're gonna have a successful season, I feel like they have to go 3-1, and we'll talk about the later schedule, but like we do every year, we have a really hard end of the schedule, so you got to take care of some of these games. If you look at it, New York, it's a revenge game, potentially for Aaron Rodgers, but definitely for Justin Fields on the other side. So his first time as a New York Jet will be interesting. Week two is a revenge game for DK Metcalf, so they started us out with back-to-back revenge game spots. New England, we never play good in New England, but third team on the rise, but still a young quarterback. Hopefully we can do that. And then Minnesota, we know what Minnesota is. They're a good football team. So I'm hoping we come out 3-1. If we don't, then I think we can kind of not expect not as good of a year. But yeah, it'll be interesting. We get another road game to start the year. I don't know when the last time we had a week one home game was, but
Mm-hmm.
the week four Dublin trip is really what set up the bye week for week five. So it's unfortunate, but I think Dublin will be a really cool experience.
Yeah, very cool experience. Really, really tough game. I think that's going to be the hardest game for the Steelers, out of those four.
Yeah.
I kind of see us at 2-2 here is a little bit more of a best case scenario. Honestly, I shouldn't say best case. Best case scenario is definitely 4-0 or 3-1.
Yeah.
I would say 2-2 is to me the most likely scenario. I feel pretty strongly that we can beat Seattle at home. I
Yeah.
don't think that their team is as good as they have been. I'd say recent years. Um, and yeah, maybe DK Metcalf revenge game, first home game of the year.
Yeah.
Um, the Seahawks quarterback situation is also
Sam
pretty
Darnold.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I feel like that's probably the most winnable game out of these three. I
I agree.
don't like how we play in New England, and who knows what could happen at the Jets. And I kind of feel like that Minnesota game is really tough, but could be a toss up. So I kind of feel like we're 2-2 here without kind of pinpointing exactly where those wins and losses are. But
Yeah,
that's kind of my thoughts going into the bye week.
I think that's reasonable. And Minnesota is another one where there's question marks, right? Because we think it's JJ McCarthy as the starting quarterback, but it might not be. And so if it's JJ McCarthy, it'll be his fourth game of the season, or
Yeah.
fourth game of his career. So we'll see.
Yeah. So after the bye week, next 4 games bring us into the start of November. So we're home against Cleveland. We go to Cincinnati. That's a Thursday night primetime game. And Sunday night football in Pittsburgh against the Green Bay Packers. Call it a revenge game if you want, if Aaron Rodgers is here, but Sunday night primetime game. And then week nine, our eighth game of the season, is at home against the Colts. So first time of the season, weeks 8 and 9, that we actually have 2 games in a row
At
at
home.
home, and that doesn't happen at all anymore in the season. It's the only time we have two back-to-back home games. So those next 4 games, I actually feel a little bit better about.
Yeah.
Cleveland, Cincinnati, Green Bay, Indy. I could see us kind of going 3-1 here. I think Cleveland at home is a good matchup. I don't know if Kenny Pickett's their quarterback or if it's Deshaun Watson or what the situation there is. At Cincy could be a tough draw, but Sunday night football, regardless of who the opponent is, Steelers play well at home in prime time, and the Colts have had our number the last couple of games we've played them.
Yeah.
To have them at home is nice because we've played them away. I believe the last couple of years, and I feel like I remember that because I wanted to go to some of those games and never really made it. So
Yeah.
I feel like coming out of this stretch, 3-1 could be feasible.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we'll see what Green Bay is this year, and I think Indianapolis and Cleveland will, yeah, they'll be struggling. Cleveland, who knows who their quarterback will be, like you said. Won't be Deshaun Watson, but we'll see who it will be. Cincinnati's always going to be tough, but we play Cincinnati well, and Joe Burrow struggles against us. So Us against Joe Burrow at Sunday or Thursday night could be interesting. So yeah, 3-1 I believe is possible.
You'd say the same thing.
Yeah, I generally would say 3-1 is very reasonable.
So you have us through week 9 at 6-2.
Well, okay, so I said for the first four, we need to be 3-1. Realistically, are we going to be 3-1? Probably not. Probably 2-2. But yeah, I'll take 6-2. That's fine.
All right, sounds good. So let's go to week 10 at the Chargers. That is also a
Sunday
Sunday
Night
night
Football.
football. Following that, week 11, we're home against the Bengals. Week 12, we're in Chicago. That's the week before Thanksgiving. And then week 13, we're home against Buffalo. So away home, Chargers, Bengals, Bears, Bills. Really, really tough draw, in my opinion. I think that Chargers team, we're going to play super, super close, but I don't know if we're going to come out on top. I feel like the Chargers are at a point where they're either going to go really high up or they're just going to come really hard down. They've had so many years where they've kind of been in that middle position, and
Yeah.
I think they're going to be a really really strong team to beat or to play against this year. And that's a tough game Sunday night in California in Los Angeles. So I don't feel great about that. I don't know this time the Bengals are at home. You said we always play them close, but I don't really see us beating the Bengals in both games.
No.
Bears on paper, people like them, but I just don't feel like they're going to be necessarily where folks think they will be. But Buffalo is really really tough too. So I actually kind of see the Steelers going 1-3 in this stretch. Is what looks the most likely to me.
And here's where I begin to say our season gets really tough, and why I said it's so important to get off to a fast start. The Chargers, like you said, are going to be a good team. Cincinnati's going to be a good team, barring injuries. Chicago looks like they are on the rise as well, and we know who Buffalo is with Josh Allen, and we struggle against top quarterbacks. So I think 0-4 is very possible here, but I do think they'll get either Cincinnati or Chicago. So I would say 1-3. It would be my guess.
Okay, so this puts us at through 12 games. I have the Steelers at 6-6. You have the Steelers at 7-5. Let's go into the last 5 games of the season here. Week 14 at Baltimore. Week 15 Monday night game at home against Miami. Week 16 at Detroit. Week 17 at Cleveland. Week 18 home against Baltimore.
Yep. And playing Miami in Pittsburgh in December is definitely, especially at night, is definitely a benefit to us. We don't know what that Miami team is going to be. They could be really good. They could be really bad. And they don't like the cold. So I feel good about that one. But here we go again. Twice in the last 5 weeks, twice in December/January, we're playing Baltimore. And I think you could probably, because we do this every year and this is the AFC North, I think you could probably count that as a split. So 3 out of the 5 games, I think if I talk about the first three is 2-1, and then you do Detroit on the road and Cleveland on the road. That's tough. Detroit's going to be tough. I don't know if we can beat them. I really don't. Cleveland, I still don't think is going to be a good team this year. So I would actually, wow, this is crazy. I thought this was a really hard stretch of the game. I think we go 3-2 here.
So it's funny you say that because doing this math is the numbers I came up with are not the numbers that I had thinking of like how the Steelers are going to end up because everything in me as a Steelers fan, just knowing this team tells me we're going to go 3-2 in this stretch.
Yeah,
I think the same thing, right? I think particularly those last 2 games. I think we'll actually no. Here's what I think happens. I think we'll lose in Baltimore.
yep.
I think we beat Miami. I think we lose in Detroit. I actually think we go ahead and drop one in Cleveland, and we win at home in Baltimore to end out the season. So actually, that
Two and
gives me
three.
a 2-3 type deal. So that puts me at a record of 8-9 here for the season. That puts you at a very optimistic 10-7. So a little bit of a two game spread between us, which I think is more than it has been in previous years.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how I feel when we get into the preseason, but yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that. Last year, actually, yeah, I don't know what we were. I could do the math. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I had us 10-7. Pretty typical. You had one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. You had us 9-8. So yeah, bigger spread than we had last year for sure.
So I think, this question of Mike Tomlin's endless, seasons above 500, my numbers here, I guess, show it. But in my mind, I feel like there's a legitimate chance that that comes to an end. I, I just feel like there's too many other teams that I think have made better moves than we have,
Yeah,
and I think I can safely say that I will be more upset with an 8-9 season than I would with a 4-13 season,
I agree.
or a 3-15 season. What's the math there? 17 games,
Yeah,
yeah,
3-14.
or 3-14. Yeah, if we finish 8-9, 9-8, I'm not going to be happy.
No, because it's just mediocrity again, and it doesn't allow us to get a draft pick that will help us for the future, right? We need a quarterback, and going 9-8, we've seen what it gets you. It gets you around 18 to 22, and that's not what we need moving forward. Yeah, I agree. I think this is the first season in a while that we come in thinking that going below 500 is actually likely. Right. I mean, we're pretty optimistic, but we've had a lot better teams, in my opinion, at least at this point in May, a lot better teams the last 3 or 4 seasons coming into the year than we do this year. And we've seen how those have turned out too. We've seen when we lose all of our quarterbacks and we have Duck Hodges playing quarterback, we still somehow manage to go winning record. So I wouldn't be shocked if we get a winning record, but I do think that a
Same.
losing record, or I agree with you. I would much rather have a bad losing record than a 9-8.
Yeah, and that's not to say we're not going to root for the Steelers. I mean, listen, I'm probably going to throw $20 on Mason Rudolph to win MVP, and
That
and
would be
and
worse than my Kenny Pickett one.
I'll be a freaking wealthy man at the end of 2025 or 2026 when that gets announced, and you're going to be jealous that you didn't make that move.
Yeah, I will be.
And yeah, I can't wait for that to hit. So I'm rooting for it for sure. But I don't think I have high expectations for this year, and I'm okay with that. I think I need to make a mid-year resolution for myself, which is to be a little more relaxed in these games because this year there's not as much to fight for. So
You say this on May 28th. We'll see how you feel middle of August. August 28th might be a different story.
all right, we'll see how it goes. It sounds like we have a few different things that we need to place in the betting books and a couple friendly wagers between ourselves of that
Yeah.
June 10th deadline for Aaron Rodgers to be a Pittsburgh Steeler and the fourth quarterback that you think will bring on if it's not him, and plenty other things I'm sure we talked about
Yeah.
that aren't coming to mind for me right now, but a lot more to come.
A lot more to come, and hopefully we get some excitement here in the next couple weeks or next couple months, and we can come back and talk about that too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if Aaron Rodgers becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler, we might have to do kind of an emergency press release for it.
Yeah.
Hop on, figure that out. But otherwise, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a once a month type deal until we get to the preseason and figure out what things look like. But
Yep.
nonetheless, great to catch up.
Great to
Talk
be
about the
back.
Steelers. Great to be back. Great to talk about the Steelers, and look forward to what's going to come through the rest of the summer and into the start of the season. So good to be back.
I agree. Yeah, it's good catching up, and let's see what they do this summer.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks everyone. Peace.